Hey everyone, CNC Keith here with yet again another DIY CNC video. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install Acorn CNC12 version 4.5 CNC control software. Alrighty, this video is the fresh installation software instructions, just like if you just got your Acorn board for the very first time. And we're going to set it up in bench test mode and install the software and get it up and running. So that's what we're going to do here in this video. So when you receive your Acorn kit, there is a schematic in the kit called the bench test schematic. Here it is right here. Bench test means we're just going to connect the 24 volts to power the Acorn board, and we're going to connect the Ethernet cable that goes over to the CNC PC and nothing else. So we want to install the software and have the Acorn up and running connected to the CNC PC in this configuration with nothing else connected. Don't connect up any limit switches, home switches, don't connect up any motor drives, no outputs, nothing. We want it just this way, and we're going to install the software and get it all up and running in bench test mode, and then we can start adding the access motor drives and home switches and limit switches one step at a time. So this is a great way to proceed, because if you hook everything all up at once and try to configure it, the chances of it working the first time are next to none. So let's get the bench test up and running and CNC12 up and running, and then we'll go from there. Alrighty, one of the first pages that you want to visit on the Centroid Acorn page is underneath the DIY Acorn CNC control. There's a link right here, how to install videos. So the very first thing you want to make sure is that your CNC PC meets the minimum specifications, the minimum requirements to run with the Acorn CNC12 software. That's all the information right here on this page. You can buy some pretty inexpensive PCs that meet these minimum requirements. So be sure to check that out and make sure that your PC meets the minimum requirements before proceeding. Once you got that PC, we need to configure Windows 10 so that it's compatible with the Acorn CNC12 software. This video shows you how to do that step by step. So the next video shows you how to connect up the Acorn board in the previously mentioned bench test mode. So this video that you're watching right now is assuming that you have done these three things. You make sure you got a PC that meets the requirements, you've configured Windows 10, and you've connected it up in bench test mode. And now I'm going to take it from here. The next step you want to do is go over here to the support link and click on CNC software downloads, and the Acorn CNC12 software page shows up, and click on this big rectangle. Now this video is being made before version 4.5 has been put publicly on the website, so when you go visit this, this will say 4.5. Click on this and you will download a zip file that contains the 4.5 version of CNC12 Acorn software. The next thing you want to do is go to the Acorn CNC Tech Support Forum, and that's CNC Forum, CentroidCNCForum.com, and take a look at this link right here, how to register for an account on this forum. So follow the video and register for an account so you can sign up for free tech support. The next thing you want to check out is probably the Acorn documentation link right here. And then there's two really important forums for first-time users. These two right here. This is the Tech Tip Knowledge Base forum, and then the Knowledge Base videos. Pretty much every question the newbie has been answered in these two forums right here. So you want to become familiar with all the great videos that are in the video forum, and then all the great technical knowledge that's available in the knowledge base as well. Alrighty, once you have configured your CNC PC and you have connected up the Acorn in the bench test configuration and turned it on, you will notice that there is a heartbeat on the Acorn board that flashes once a second. Before we begin the software installation process, I like to come down here and bring up the Windows 10 command prompt and type in ping 10.168.41.1, and what this is doing is pinging the Ethernet port on the CNC PC itself to make sure it's working, and that just passed this test. So I have 4 packets sent and 4 received with 0 losses. Now I'm going to ping the Acorn board itself, the Ethernet port on the Acorn board, by changing the 1 to a 2 on the end of that address string. And sure enough, we have good communication between the CNC PC and the Acorn with 4 packets sent and 4 received. So I have just verified with this ping test that this CNC PC that I'm on right now is able to communicate with the Acorn board. If you do this ping test right here and this fails, you will not be able to successfully run CNC12 software. You have to be able to pass these tests. If you don't pass these tests, there's a great video on the forum right here that's checking IP address settings and solving communication errors. You're going to watch this video right here if you can't do the ping test that I just showed you how to do. Alrighty, so we passed the ping test. I'm going to close that out. We've downloaded the zip file from the Centroid website. It's in this folder right here. Here's the zip file. I right-clicked and I hit extract all, and it created this folder. When I open this folder, there's a setup.exe in there, and I'm going to double-click that setup file. Windows is going to throw up 1 or maybe 2 messages here that you're going to have to get by. It doesn't recognize our software. Well, the reason for that is that we have a not registered CNC12 with Microsoft. So you're just going to click yes, and the setup program will start. Sometimes another Windows message will also show up sometimes, and you have to click more info on that to continue on. There's instructions in the instructional PDF on how to do that. It's pretty easy. I didn't get it this time. Sometimes Windows does it, sometimes it doesn't do it. I'm not sure why. But anyways, I'm going to go through the installation process here just by clicking next and I agree. And in 4.5 you have 2 choices between mill and lathe software. The mill software is for milling machines and routers. That's what I'm after, so I have that checkbox checked. And then it wants to know whether I'm going to be operating in millimeters or inches. I'm going to run this in inches. And the installation begins by copying all the files over. Okay, all done. I click next, and you'll notice that and finish that we have an icon appear on the desktop. Now, with the Acorn board powered up and running with the heartbeat flashing, I'm going to double click on the icon and the CNC12 software will start. The very first thing it does is installs the new version of firmware, which is a really nice feature that CNC12 does on the Acorn board. And you're going to get some messages here saying MPU rebooting. And it's very important not to power off the Acorn board. MPU stands for Motion Processing Unit. And that's the big above green is getting a new firmware updated here. And we're just going to let it do its thing. Already the firmware was updated and CNC12 has rebooted. And it's doing some housekeeping stuff here in the beginning. And it's all said and done. Now, the very first thing I want to do is hit F1 Setup and to verify what version I have installed. You can see here it displays in the center of the screen the version number, your system ID, and what license. So we're running Acorn Free currently. So I've done a successful installation of version 4.5. Now when the CNC12 software starts for the very first time, it is actually configured to match this wiring diagram, the bench test wiring diagram. The next thing that you're going to want to do is configure the CNC12 software to match your particular CNC control configuration and then machine configuration. And that's done by a really nice piece of software called the Acorn CNC Control Wizard, which you go to the utility menu and then hit F10 Acorn Wizard, and the wizard will start. Now this is the Acorn CNC Control Configuration Wizard, in which we are going to use this piece of software to configure CNC12s to our specific CNC control setup and machine tool setup. So over here on the left is a bunch of menus. I'm just going to click through them. And this is where you're going to select what type of axis motors and drives, what kind of inputs and outputs you have configured, how big your machine is, what direction do you want to home it, all this great information that's specific to your control and machine tool is set using the Acorn Wizard. Really nice feature to have here with the Acorn CNC software. Now, the very first place you want to start, you kind of work from top to bottom through all this, is a general flow. The very first place you want to start is the axis drive type. So what's really cool about this is there's a whole bunch of axis motor drive types that are presets. So these are standard drive types that we have connected up on the bench and sorted everything out and got them working. So if you have, for instance, if you're hooking up either one of these ClearPath type drives, you would select the ClearPath setting, and all these parameters that are specific to that ClearPath drive would be set automatically for you. Just think of it as this is pre-configured to run with ClearPath. And there's a whole bunch of selections here, like here's one for Delta. Now the other cool thing is that every single one of these drive types also has a corresponding Acorn to that particular drive type, in this case Delta, schematic. So here is the Acorn to Delta AC brushless servo drive schematic hookup diagram. So what you would do is wire your Delta to the Acorn exactly as shown here, and then in the wizard pick Delta, and then select load drive, and it would load all this information into the configuration automatically to match that schematic, and it would run, which is really cool. Now, don't fret if your drive type is not on this list. You can pick one that's similar and modify it, or you could even start from scratch and do your own custom drive type. And you can even import and export drive types so you can share it with your buddies or anybody else on the forum, which is pretty cool. Well, on this bench test rig that I have, what I have connected is an old Gecko G540 that I like to run in drive only mode. So I'm going to select that and click load drive, which it is done. And now that I have my drive type loaded, I can go on and set some of the other settings. So for the very first time, what I don't want you to do is come into the input definitions screen and start adding a whole bunch of inputs like limit switches and home switches. All we want to do at this point in time is just get motion running on the drive. So I'm just going to let the drive OK and the e-stop stay here because that was automatically loaded with the drive type. So when I selected G540, it automatically put drive OK and e-stop OK on inputs 5 and 8 because that matches the G540 schematic. Well, you might ask me, where do I get all these schematics? Well, all these schematics are right here on the Acorn CNC control page. If you scroll about halfway down, there's a big zip file. It's the first link here. And if you download that zip file, which I've done, okay, I found it. If you download that zip file, and here it is, and open it up, you'll see there's a whole bunch of great Acorn schematics, and all the schematics, or all the drive types right here have corresponding schematics. So you'll see Gecko, Lead Shine, ClearPath, DMM, Yaskawa. So if I pick G540 as stepper drive only, this is how I currently have my system wired. So I'm using a DB25 cable to go from the G540 to the Acorn. And that's it. So back to my point here is leave the input definitions, all the rest of them blank. Like here's all the limit, home, and home limit and probe settings. It's tempting to go set all this stuff up right now, but don't do it. Let's just get motion working, and then we can always come back and configure our limit, home switches, and probes and all that kind of stuff. Now, output definitions is a little different. It's actually just fine to program an output definition without actually having anything hooked up, because the only thing that's going to happen is the relay will trigger. It's not going to issue an error message. Like if you have a limit switch configured in the input definition but not hooked up, it's going to give you an error message and stop your motion from running. Well, output definitions aren't like that, where it will just fire the relay even though nothing's connected up to it. So you can go ahead and have some fun and do what I'm doing and configure some outputs. Now the next screen you definitely want to configure on the first time around is the configuration screen, which has a bunch of good stuff in here, like how fast you want to move, how slow, what your A cell, D cell is, direction reverse. And you should be doing this at this point in time with your motors on the bench, not connected to a machine. And there's a bunch of great videos on the forum. Let's go back to the knowledge-based videos that's taking you through in detail what I'm glossing over right now. So this Centroid Acorn CNC Basics video series is an extensive video series that takes you through setting up your limit switches, turns ratios, relays, encoders, fine-tuning the motion, all that good stuff. So I'm not going to repeat that information here. I just wanted to get you to the point that you're familiar enough with the wizard to start using it. And one of the most important things here in the axis configuration menu is to set this steps per revolution so that it matches what your drive is set to. So there's dip switches on almost all stepper motor drives that set the number of steps per revolution to 1600, 2000, 4000, whatever you choose. Well, it's very important that you tell CNC 12 what those dip switches are set to. So if you have it set to 4000 steps per rev, you've got to put 4000 in here on that particular axis so that Acorn knows what it's connected to drive-wise, what the drive is configured to, so it outputs the proper steps. Now, a lot of newbies get themselves into trouble and they will adjust this number to adjust the motion. So for instance, if I ask to move 1 inch and it doesn't move 1 inch, it's tempting to come in here and put like 396, like to add or subtract steps to it. This is the wrong thing to do. This number can only be what the drive is set to. Whether it's 1600, 2000, 4000, 4096, those numbers have to match between the drive and the software. Where you adjust how the distance that it moves is in the overall turns ratio. So this number comes as default to set to 5 because on a milling machine, it's very common to have a ball screw or lead screw that has 5 turns per inch. So that's where that 5 comes from. And if you command it to move 1 inch and it doesn't move an inch, then you've got to calculate your overall turns ratio. There's a great explanation in both video and documentation on how to do this. So I'm not going to go over this in detail. I just want to make the point that this is what you're adjusting. If you're belted, for instance, 2-to-1 to a 5 turns per inch ball screw, the overall turns ratio would then be 10. It would take 10 turns of the motor to move 1 inch in that scenario. I think the rest of these things are pretty easy to understand. Don't worry about homing and travel for this bench test. I have simple home selected here for the first time around. And then you can go in some of these other menus and maybe configure the CNC control or maybe your wireless MPG, all that kind of good stuff. But don't configure too much at once. You just want to get basic motion. So I've done enough just to get basic motion up and running. So very important here that we hit right settings, the CNC control, and follow the instructions on the screen. It's going to ask me to reboot the Acorn board. So I'm just turning off the 24-volt power supply. And now I'm turning it back on. Following the instructions on the screen, it says wait for a heartbeat and then press OK to continue. And I'm looking at my Acorn. Okay, I have a heartbeat and here we go. It reboots CNC 12 with all those new settings that I just set with the wizard. I hit the reset button here to clear it. I'm going to cycle my e-stop. That's one of the first things you do. Man, that's working great. Next thing I'm going to do is hit cycle start here to set home, and it just sets home wherever we're at. And my DRO appears, the digital readout. Now I'm going to try to jog, and sure enough, I have motion on my motors. Check out Y, check out Z. Fantastic. And I'm off and running. So that is how easy it is to install version 4.5 and Acorn in bench test mode. If you have a license file, if you have a pro or digitizing license file, you go to the utility menu and then options and click import license and navigate to where your license is. I think I got mine on a folder here. And there we go. There's my pro mill. Select that. License successfully imported. Now, the features that are available in the Pro license will be you'll be able to activate those in the wizard, such as the MPG and axis pairing. So if I wanted to pair the fourth axis to the first axis, I could do that and follow the instructions on the screen. All I got to do is reboot CNC12 in this case, and I will have successfully paired the fourth axis with the first axis. Let's go ahead and check it out. Got to always press reset after you've closed and started CNC12, and sure enough, there we go. I see two motors spinning, which is fantastic. I've paired the fourth and the first axis. Alrighty, that's it. You're off and running. Now you can use the wizard to go in and configure all the other great stuff. You can start adding limit switches and home switches, but I want you to rely on these video series in the forum that describes how to do all that. Excellent series here by Marty on how to connect up and how fine-tune your axes. Everybody should watch this first time around. And there's many other videos in here, so be sure to sign up. And if you do get stuck if you can't find your information, the information you're after, you can post a question here by clicking New Topic and posting a question, which will be answered by one of us Centroid Tech guys. And there's many other really awesome Acorn power users offering up tips and advice and helping people out. Before you post, there's a great post right here, which I'm going to click on, which tells you how to post the proper information that we can help you. So simple posts like, I hooked this up and it doesn't work, aren't going to get much of an answer. But if you give us a fresh report file, some photos, maybe even creating a video, and then you'll get very good, specific, fast information on how to get your machine up and running. Alrighty, that's it. Good luck with your projects. Take care.